I've said my piece. I've explained why the media was so horrible in this. I also, frankly, had to call out my former employer. I did a video, but that's, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I was right. I told you so. People are living like there is now full blown, like Rachel Maddow, a lot of people at MSNBC, others are now Russiagate like truthers, almost like pretending that, well, we don't know, Barr could have misrepresented Robert Mueller's report, so we don't know. Maybe what Barr's saying isn't true. Listen, and then attacking me and Michael Tracy, Aaron Maté, Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, others that were right about this, saying, "Oh, well, you guys are always skeptical of the government. You tell your viewers never automatically believe the government, so you just believe what Barr's saying to be the case." Yeah, I am skeptical of the government, but I also have common sense. So for these people, including Rachel Maddow, she is pushing this, that we don't know if Barr has misrepresented or not told us everything what Mueller found. Do you actually, like, if you read Barr's memo, he directly quoted from Mueller. That one sentence is from Mueller that says we did not find criminal conspiracy or collusion, right? So do you really think the Attorney General could get away with misquoting Robert Mueller of lying about what he found or didn't find? Do you actually think Mueller and an army of, I think he had like at one point 30 or so prosecutors, would just sit idly by and be like, oh, we worked on this for 2.5 years, but, I guess we'll just let him make it up. Do you actually, I don't think they actually think this. This is just all to continue the ruse. It's all to continue, the narrative. It's all to, Rachel Maddow, her ratings fell off a cliff on Monday, right after Mueller's report, because like the jig is up. You push this Cold War, his reenactment for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And the conclusion you wanted didn't come. Now, I've said this over and over, and I've said it here. I want the full report to be released, because just because Mueller didn't find collusion or conspiracy doesn't mean there's not damning things in there that we need to know about Trump, about his campaign, about money stuff with him and Russia and things like that. I want that information out, and so I have no problem with that. I also think that I say be careful about talking impeachment, because the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You got a Christian fundamentalist crazy person who's competent politically. I think if Mike Pence were president, Obamacare would have been gone long ago. But we need to see what's in there, because there could be things that are high crimes and misdemeanor. I'm not like I don't have Trump derangement, but that's just, we need to see. But, part of, what are the 5 stages of grief? Like, one of the early ones is acceptance. You have to accept that you were wrong. You have to accept that this theory and this conspiracy and this all these Hillbots and neoliberals were hanging on for dear life, so this could give them cover, and this could be the reason that he won. This is why Queen Hillary lost. It was an evil conspiracy with Trump and the Russian government. They were waiting to be validated, because they don't want to admit he won. It was pretty much fair and square. Politics is dirty, but she made really bad errors during the campaign. She wasn't a good candidate. Her and her husband did some really bad things that affected those critical states, like NAFTA, for starters. But I don't want to talk about Russiagate forever, but I do need to address this, because, I saw a quote from CNN's president, Jeff Zucker, saying this: "We are not investigators. We are journalists. And our role is to report the facts as we know them," which is exactly what we did, he told the New York Times. A sitting president's own Justice Department investigated his campaign for collusion with a hostile nation. That's not enormous because the media says so. That's enormous because it's unprecedented. Wow. We're not investigators. We are journalists. and our role is to report the facts as we know them, which is exactly what we did. Well, if CNN isn't investigators, if their role is not to investigate anything, what exactly is their role? And, in full fairness, so you could hear the spin on that comment, I tweeted out, "This is the most stunning comment I've heard a news executive say. If as journalists you're not equipped to investigate, what exactly is it that you do?" Oh, I forgot the word do. Just regurgitate what the actual investigators, CIA, FBI, Homeland Security tell you? And this was in response to their media reporter or critic or whatever. I know Brian Stelter. I met up with him years ago. I don't have anything personally against him, but I think he is pretty oblivious and tone deaf to how awful the corporate media is. Probably because he lives in an ivory tower in CNN's studio. So Brian basically said I was misinterpreting, or I was spinning the meaning. He wrote back, "Most everyone else knows exactly what he was talking about." Most everyone else knows exactly what he's talking about. Who's most everyone else? Isn't a reporter's job to name names? Who is this most everyone else knows exactly what he was talking about? That journalists aren't federal investigators with Mueller-type powers. Okay, so he's saying that the CNN president, what he meant was, we're not legal investigators. We're not federal investigators. We don't have subpoena power. We don't have those kind of powers. We're journalists, and our role is to report the facts as we know them, which is exactly what we did. Oh, that's important that he said that. The facts. So, here's the thing. If I even wanted to give the benefit of the doubt to CNN that their president that what their president was trying to say is that we're not federal investigators, which I actually don't think is what he meant to say. I think he was legitimately saying, we're not investigators. We just report what they tell us, which means you're not a journalist, but putting that aside. If you gave him the benefit of the doubt that that's what that quote means, that CNN are not legal federal police or DOJ or a special prosecutor, and we just report the facts, then the president of CNN and Brian Stelter just basically undermined their coverage. Because myself, I don't want to speak for them, but I would guess Aaron Maté, Michael Tracy, Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald, Jamal Thomas, Jen with Status Quo. Who am I forgetting that was really big on this? Lee Camp, Jimmy Dore, of course. I'm sure there were others, and I'm just forgetting some. I don't think we'd have a problem. I know I don't have a problem that they covered the Michael Cohen stuff. I think they covered it too much, but fine. He was the president's lawyer, and the hush money payments and whatever. I don't have a problem that they covered Michael Flynn. I think they covered it too much, but that's fine. I don't have a problem that they covered Manafort. It was totally unrelated to the campaign, so it was all stuff he did before. But fine, he was the campaign chairman. Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, all these people. I don't have a problem. Yeah, he's the president, and these people worked in his campaign. So if they committed crimes, they should cover that. That's fine. But where you lose me, and where I think they're just totally full of boop, trying not to curse because I keep getting demonetized. You didn't report the facts as you know them because there were never any facts to support Trump and his campaign working with the Russian government. And by the way, I was on the campaign trail when this conspiracy theory was hatched. So the original charge is the Trump campaign knowingly worked with Russian government officials or cutouts to the Russian government to hack Hillary Clinton's emails and distribute them through WikiLeaks. That was the original sin. That was the original cookie cockamamie story, right? So there were never any facts to support that. They put out stories, The Guardian put out stories that CNN ran with, by the way, saying that Paul Manafort and Julian Assange met in the Ecuadorian embassy right when Manafort became Trump's campaign chairman. That, I said at the time, if that's true, that would be pretty scandalous because it shows a timeline and interaction between Trump's campaign and WikiLeaks. That story is still up on The Guardian. No other network, print, digital, or cable news, has been able to confirm that story, even though they all ran with it. I saw CNN all day running with it. Want to know why? Because it's not true. And because we live in this backwards version of journalism, you don't ever get a retraction. They don't take the story down. They just keep it there. And in some cases, put an editor's note. Like right now, if you go to the Washington Post, there's still a story up that Russia hacked Vermont's electrical grid. The story is still up. The headline's still up. Just has an editor note at the top, essentially saying, this story's not true. They didn't take it down. They didn't issue a retraction because we could never be wrong. Your Rachel Maddow could never be wrong. The Washington Post could never be wrong. The New York Times could be never wrong. Cenk Uygur could never be wrong. Sorry, I had to do that. So, this is very, very troubling. Very, very troubling. Because CNN didn't report the facts as we know it. Here were the facts as we know it, okay? Trump armed the Ukrainian rebels, which I think is a huge, huge bad thing. He bombed Syria twice. He's trying to execute a coup in Venezuela. Pulled out of the INF Treaty. These are all things that a Putin puppet whose campaign conspired with Russia to get elected, that they would not be doing those things because Russia doesn't want those things. Especially arming the Ukrainian rebels. So there were facts where Trump was hawkish against Russia because he was listening to the neocons around him who still live in this fairy tale Cold War era. I mean, he brought down John Bolton. What do you expect? There were also never any actual proof that the Trump campaign had any communication with WikiLeaks. The closest thing was Roger Stone DMing with Julian Assange, but literally the communication was Julian Assange saying, stop misrepresenting our communications. That was it. Essentially, what CNN's saying is we just report the facts as we know them. No. You pushed a conspiracy for 2.5 years. And it's not just them. It was MSNBC, Rachel Maddow. Her career took off. She was the highest rated cable host. And all of this, I'm not complaining about it. I'm not covering it because they were wrong. You get things wrong. But I'm covering it, A, because I think they knew they were wrong, and they went with it anyway. There was a story in Vanity Fair saying there wasn't much of a market for skepticism on MSNBC. Wasn't much of a market for skepticism. Well, that means when you use the term market, that this is a business decision. We're making a business decision to go with this rather than a news judgment whether it's true. And the result of that is scaring the hell out of your audience, exciting the hell out of your audience with this Cold War espionage thriller, and lying to your audience. So that's one thing. But the other thing is what is the opportunity cost? What, by doing all this and by covering all this, and when I say covering, I mean inventing it out of thin air, this collusion conspiracy theory. And if you're still on the fence, I mean, if you really believe that William Barr is making up quotes from Robert Mueller and he's just sitting idly by, I got a bridge to sell you. Okay? And by the way, I have said already, I think it's absurd that Robert Mueller did not find obstruction of justice. The President of the United States went on national television and told an anchor, I fired Comey because he was investigating this Russia stuff. That's like blinking red lights obstruction of justice. So I think Trump did commit a crime. But I don't think it was collusion with the Russian government. I think it was obstructing justice because he thinks he could do anything, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, nobody will care. So he obstructed justice, and I think there's more to the story on why Mueller did not rule on that. And I would like to know why. And that's why we need to see the Mueller report. I'm not one of these cheerleaders saying, let's impeach Trump, because I don't want Mike Pence to be president. I think he's worse than Trump. He doesn't sound as bad. He don't tweet like that. He doesn't say bigoted things, but he's a bigot. And he's not going to be kind to reproductive rights. Go ask women in Indiana about that. He's not going to be kind to the LGBT community. Go ask the LGBT community. And he's certainly as lethal as Trump is, as far as, voodoo economics, trickle-down economics, corporate tax cuts, more tax cuts for Boeing and Raytheon and Goldman Sachs and all this. So we don't want Pence. We need to defeat Trump in 2020. But the bottom line, folks, is CNN admitted they're not investigators, which means they're not journalists. Because I wouldn't have had a problem if their investigative journalists, if they have such a thing, was trying to find out what Mueller knew, or trying to break stories about what was Mueller looking into, what actually happened. That's what investigative journalists do. I think there's more important things to investigate, but that's fine. The problem is, hour after hour, segment after segment, week after week, month after month, year after year, pundits and journalists just filling airtime to bridge to the next Viagra or Cialis commercial, because that's what cable news is. Sorry, my men, my male viewers here. I'm sure I'll need it at one point too. But just with endless speculation, propaganda, conspiracy, the walls are closing in, the walls are closing in. CNN, you didn't report the facts as we know it. You invented the facts as we know it. And the reason it's important to hold these frauds accountable is not to do a victory lap, is not to gloat. It feels good, yes, but that's, my validation in life doesn't come from CNN bashing. The reason it's important is elections are decided based, in large part, yes, voter suppression, election fraud, but the corporate media propping up certain candidates while knocking down others. So we need, as independent media, and that's why I was critical of the Young Turks, because independent media is so important. And, everybody's got an opinion, whether they're independent or not. I'm not going to get into that. But the point is, independent media has to sound the alarm and wake more people up to what you're hearing in corporate media is not media. It's not even journalism. It's propaganda. Has CNN ever done a good report? Yeah, sure. MSNBC long ago did some good stuff, but those days are gone. Because now they're trying to cash in on whatever sensational, propagandish fantasy that could scare the hell out of their viewers. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.